Master hot yoga breathing and empower your practice and your teaching if you're a yoga teacher. It's really the art of breath, or in Sanskrit they call it pranayama. Now pranayama isn't necessarily breath control, even though you may read that as a definition. Yogananda is very adamant saying it's life force control that we control with the breath. But it's the placement of the breath that's the key, and that's what we're going to talk about. This is what I call the Ujjayi sound, the back of the throat breath. And when you can get this breath into your practice, when you can get this breath into your meditation pranayama techniques, it'll transform everything, I guarantee it. So you have to listen to the breath, and this is something that I really don't see that many people do. As I travel the world, I've been privileged to travel all across the world teaching yoga, especially hot yoga, more specifically hot yoga, and I really don't hear people breathing properly. Once you can get the breath down, it'll transform everything, your practice, your teaching, and your life. I'm guaranteeing it. It's called the Ujjayi sound, or what Bikram used to say, back of the throat breathing. So when you're inhaling, you're not just going to sniff through your nose. If you go to a doctor's office, they put a stethoscope to your back and he tells you to inhale. Most people do this. And then maybe 10% of the breath comes into your lungs. Mostly you're swallowing air. The chest does not move. Your nostrils don't flare up. When you're doing the proper placement of the Ujjayi breath, this is all relaxed. And the strength comes from the diaphragm below. So when you're taking a deep breath in, this is the sound you should be making. You can hear my lungs expanding. Now 100% of the breath is going into my lungs to fill them. Before I give you the next tip, I want you to hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, hit the like button if you're enjoying this video. You want to learn all about hot yoga, tutorials, flows, factoids. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button right now. When I first moved to Florida in 1982, I developed allergies. I had actually bronchitis, and then I got asthma, and I went to an allergist. And he put me on this spirometry machine. He told me to inhale through this tube. And I was placing the breath through the back of the throat using the proper Ujjayi breath. So he says, take a deep breath in. Actually, it was the nurse first. First, he says, take a deep breath in and then exhale. So I'm taking my deep breath in. She goes, no exhale, no exhale. I said, wait a minute, hold on. I'm still inhaling. Let me inhale, and then I'll breathe out like you want to. So I'm taking my deep, long breath, which she's never heard before. Filling my lungs, and then I start blowing out into this spirometry tube where this bubble lifts up. Probably have seen it before. Anyway, long story short, she had never seen anything like it in her entire career. She brings the doctor and the allergist in and shows him the results. Same thing, he had never seen anything like it, even compared to marathon runners. It's not that I had this amazing lung capacities, because I was breathing properly, filling my lungs to 100% capacity. Later on, I started doing television shows back in the 90s on different subjects of yoga, and I would bring in different experts. So I brought the allergist into the television show to demonstrate how yoga can help heal asthma and allergies through the proper placement of the breath.
Can help in treating allergies, which you went to medical school for, etc.
One of the things in treating asthma particularly is breathing exercises. In fact, the yoga maneuver that they're showing now is very similar to pulmonary exercises that one does with asthma or breathing difficulties. One of the interesting things I'd like to bring up is Jimmy's breathing capacity is double normal. When I did spirometry studies, which is an evaluation of the capacity of the lung, I was quite astounded. And that's when I got interested in asking him what he did.
But it's something you have to practice. I can say, okay, breathe this way, and you're not going to be able to figure it out. So I've created a technique that I want you to practice with me right now. If you were to inhale through the mouth, automatically the mouth and the throat are very connected. So if you inhale through the mouth, you're filling the lungs to 100% capacity. Inhaling through the nose, it's not as connected to the throat as the mouth is. So most people, when you say inhale, they do that. That's the sniffing sound, which we don't want. So what this technique I created is to inhale through your mouth first, so you're able to place the breath properly. Continue the inhalation, close your mouth, and continue the process of the inhalation. So like this. Now I'm keeping my hand in my chest. I don't want your chest to lift up. So you don't want to do this, because then you're going right back to the old bad habit. What you want to do is keep your chest relaxed. Inhale through the mouth. Close the mouth, but keep the sensation of the inhalation. Once again. Now, you still may not get it, but it's something you can practice. Practice when you're taking your next walk down into the park, or practice when you're driving in your car. Take the breath through the back of the throat. Close the throat and continue the inhalation sensation. Eventually, you won't have to breathe through your mouth first. Eventually, be able to go right to the nose. And fill the lungs to their full potential 100%. And I'll tell you why that's important. Because just like the title of the video, that's how you're going to empower your practice, elevate your practice by getting this particular placement of the breath down. So when you're doing a pose like awkward pose, you don't just inhale and come down. Or you're coming up from the third part awkward pose. You just don't come up. You got to take the proper breath first to fill the lungs and empower your practice. Here you are all the way down in the third part of the awkward pose. Now you're taking a deep breath in. And now you come up. And as you come up, you can let a little bit of exhale out. That's what we call in the Barkan world the percentage breath, what Bikram calls 80-20. Let's talk about that. Because we do yoga in a hot room, we can't take deep breaths in and deep breaths out. If you've ever taken a vinyasa class in a non-heated room or maybe just a warm room, you'll hear them take deep breaths in and deep breaths out while they're in their practice. We can't do that in the hot room where we're going to pass out, we're going to hyperventilate because the temperature's too hot. So that's what Bikram calls 80-20, and I call percentage breath. You can take as much breath in as you want. But then we're in a pose that requires strength, like the awkward pose, like standing head to knee, like the triangle pose. You can let little bits of exhale out. So Bikram would say, keep 80% of the breath in your lungs, let 20% out. When 20% is out, inhale again to 100%, and once again, only let out 20%. So you have at least 80% of the breath in your lungs. Now I say it's more percentage because sometimes it's 70, sometimes it's 90. It really depends on the pose. Can't be so exact, but that's the framework you want to work on. That's the framework you want to think about. Keeping most of the breath in your lungs, but you still need to exhale, because if you don't exhale, you're not going to have the range of motion for your body to move, because the breath takes up a lot of room in the body. If you just inhale and hold your breath in the pose, you're going to be stuck because the breath is going to be taking up lots of room. As the breath goes out, you have range of motion. It's like a bodybuilder when he lifts a weight. He inhales, and as he lifts the weight, he exhales to give himself that range of motion. Same thing in yoga. So then you have to time your breath. You have to know you're inhaling to come into the pose, you're inhaling for the transitions, exhaling for the range of motion, and that becomes part of your practice. It's going to take time for you to time it. To time your breath is key. If you're a singer, singers have to time the breath. I don't know if you know this, but that's one of my part-time jobs. My original dream is to be a singer, which I still do on a part-time basis. You can check out one of my videos if you want to. You can see me sing. If you saw the Lady Gaga Netflix video when she had her whole backstage performance filmed before she did the Super Bowl halftime show, and she was talking about having a costume change. And at one point she says, this jacket has to be ready. I can't be thinking about that. I have to be thinking about how I can set my breath for the next note. What she was saying was, as a singer, you have to set your breath for the next note. You have to think about the same thing in yoga. You have to set your breath to get into the yogic pose. If you're doing a postures on a regular basis and you don't think about setting your breath, you're going to struggle within your balance. You're going to struggle within your control of the pose. That's why I see a lot of people are out of control, because they're not timing the breath, they're not setting the breath to reach the full potential. Oh, and by the way, for all the Bikram students, FYI, Lady Gaga was a big Bikram student before. Before she was Lady Gaga, she was practicing on 48th Street and 8th Avenue at Jen and Donna's studio, Bikram NYC. Now it's Bodhi NYC. That's when she was just called Stephanie. And as you get more advanced in your yoga practice, especially when you're practicing some of the advanced postures, it's absolutely, and this is really how I became so conscious of it, it's absolutely essential that you time the breath, or you're not going to be able to perform into that pose. For example, here's a video of me doing crow pose. So I'm doing the position of crow pose, and as I extend up into my handstand, it's all timed with the breath. If I don't time the breath properly, I'm taking that deep breath in, and as I slowly start to lift up, I'm making a 20% exhaling breath out, but I'm not letting all the breath out so I can maintain the position and hold it. So timing the breath in the advanced postures may be more conscious of timing the breath in the beginning poses when it's not essential to do it, but understand how important it is when you do it. When you do set your breath in the beginning poses, it's going to make all. And one last example is sort of an advanced tip about standing head to knee, which I did a video on recently. When you're doing standing head to knee, for example, and you're at the final position, the full advanced position, you can go into 80-20, but once you get into that full position, then you can begin to relax the breath. Because if you hold the breath, you're ain't going to hold the posture for as long as you can hold the breath. But if you're doing this posture like it's supposed to be, the proper time is 60 seconds. The only way you're going to get to 60 seconds, the advanced level, is to relax the breath. So that's one little tip I want to show you. Same thing with standing bow. And most meditation techniques have to do with breathing. It's the same thing. When you're doing your meditation, you're taking a deep breath in. Sometimes one technique is you can inhale up, think of the breath coming up the spine for 10 seconds, hold the breath for 10 seconds, and exhale down for 10 seconds. I did a recent video on meditation techniques. Check that out after you watch this one. But you want it, it's the same thing. It's the same placement. So when you're inhaling, you're not just going, or you never get to 10 seconds. It's impossible. Instead, you can hold it 10 seconds, and after that 10 seconds are over, exhale for 10 seconds. Back of the throat. Ujjayi means victorious breath. It expands the lungs, opens your body, opens your practice, and transforms your life. I also had the privilege of working with a lot of the professional athletes in South Florida, and a couple of the Miami Dolphins said to me once, when they're down in the field, sometimes, especially in the heat, in Florida it gets extremely hot, and the sun is baking down on them, and because they're in the stadium, it's like being in this canyon where there's no breeze, it's extremely hot, and they sometimes struggle with the breathing, and that's when I started to teach them the Ujjayi sound, and one of the centers, this is back in the late 1990s, his name was Jeff Yolnick, he said it really transformed his game, because he was now able to breathe that way and fill his lungs, and he wasn't out of breath as much, and he definitely wasn't hyperventilating, which can be a problem down in that field. When you're timing the breath properly, inhale for strength, exhale for flexibility. If you have both and you're holding a position that requires strength, keeping most of the breath in your body, letting little bits of exhale out, 20% at the most. But posture like, let's take one more example. Posture like full locust. That we can go more 90-10. You don't want to let more than 10% out because you really can't inhale once you're up there. So you want a little bit of exhale out. It's only a 10-second pose, keeping most of the breath in your lungs. So make sure to time the breath with the proper placement. Ujjayi sound, as Lady Gaga says, set your breath. It'll change your practice. It'll transform your practice and transform your life, guaranteed. So that's our episode for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the notification bell. If you enjoy this video, hit the like button, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye, everyone.